All right, and here we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes over here on Facebook. If you're listening to this through my podcast or over on YouTube and you've got questions you'd like me to answer, drop them down into the comment section there. I do check those before I start off these sessions, and that actually brings me up to a whole bunch of questions I didn't get a chance to get to yesterday. I'll go ahead and blame it on technical difficulties with the live feed, but a bunch of the questions didn't pop through. So I have a little bit of catch-up work, but that lets us dive right into some really good stuff here. First ones were from Crystal, and it was, the district manager is giving me a lot of work. I haven't said no yet, but how do I go about saying no? One of the best ways to get a boss who is overloading you with work to not give you things is to ask for some priorities. So it's when they try to pile on the next thing, it's like, okay, that's fantastic. I am working on this and this. Do you want me to work on this new thing ahead of those or after I finish these other things? So what happens is you are doing what happens with your to-do list. You can't get everything off of your to-do list. So what you're doing is you're making your boss prioritize and you're getting those priorities finished. Those other things may slip, may increase in priority as you see them, but that's one of the easiest ways to kind of tackle that saying no thing is tackling it that way. And in a lot of cases where you have a whole bunch of priorities popping up, they can actually decide for themselves to give that to somebody else. That's another great thing for you to do in your leadership role is when you give a task to somebody, ask where it fits into their priorities, see what it is that they're doing, and that gives you a chance to assess whether you need to give that particular task to somebody else so that somebody can really work on their priorities in that particular situation. Jerry, so good to see you here, buddy. Crystal had another follow-up, and that is, how much is too much when taking on stretch assignments? And I'm going to get back to the whole priorities thing. And so I talk in time management about the Stephen Covey priority quadrants, four areas. And so it is importance on one axis and urgency on another axis. And so what you want to do is you want to be dealing in these high importance items, okay? Whether it's high urgency or low urgency. So when stretch assignments become a problem where it is inhibiting your ability to get other high importance items or other high priorities out of the way, then that stretch assignment is becoming a problem. Okay, it's as simple as that. It gets back to those priorities. You want to be working in high priority, high importance as much as humanly possible and pushing those low importance items down to your staff, delegating those items out, but keeping that focus in those high importance areas. If it's a low importance item, it may disappear all on its lonesome, or because it's been sitting for a while, it bumps up to that high importance. But when talking about stretch assignments, when they start inhibiting your ability to get other high importance things done, that's when those stretch assignments have gone too far. Great questions to start us off, Crystal. And Bob, Kim, good to see you guys here as well. Cindy had I'll take the easy one that Cindy had first, and that is, I tend to repeat myself all of the time because I'm reading the people that I'm talking to and they don't seem to be getting the message. What is a way around repeating myself or engaging them with questions? And that you hit on the nail on the head right there is creating a dialogue. So when you give direction to one of your team members, ask them not, do you have any questions? Because the answer is always no. Ask them to explain any concerns that they might have with it. And what you do to bring this out is bring up a few key points. Are you clear on not are we clear, because yes or no answers are just going to get a yes or a no, whichever gets them out of that meeting quick enough. How are you planning on handling such and such aspect? How do you think you should deal with this? So you seed it with a few questions to open the dialogue. And once the gates of dialogue are open, then you get all of the questions in. When you ask your team, do you have any questions? The answer is going to almost always be no. So you have to take a different track with that and make it individual to what you're asking about, but ask for clarifications on how they're going to go about doing that. Just out of curiosity, how are you going to deal with this? Or what are the problems that you see in dealing with this particular contractor or this particular customer? And when you open up that dialogue, you're able to open it up further and further, and that's where you get to determine whether they actually understood what it was that you're saying. That's a simple one. The next one from Cindy is, and I'll kind of paraphrase this a little bit, she took over an interior design division for a company and was charged with growing it. And the advertising that they do right now isn't up to snuff, but the CEO seems to be very firm on, we want to see if what we have in place can work. And she's pretty aware that it's not going to work, and she needs to go this other route that is going to get those other clear benefits. Few ways to tackle this particular situation. The first is making sure that you present numbers wherever possible. This is the expectations that we can get. This is what I have seen in the past with this other advertising medium. Or this is what we've done already in this advertising medium and we haven't gotten the benefits that we want. So I'd like to shift some of this to this new one to see if we can get some traction in that particular category. Numbers are your friend, Cindy. Wherever you have numbers, wherever you have prior history and examples, that's your go-to in that particular situation, okay? So that's kind of the logical track that likely you have already gone down. If you're trying to convince, in this case, a CEO or your boss to try something different instead of doing what has always been done, what you can also do, the second track after you've tried the logic element, is to do a deep dive into what they are recommending. And I've seen this happen many times before in my own career, and it's the worst moments in my career where I am dead set against a course of action, but it's mandated that I go through it. And lo and behold, I threw everything in it because I'm pissed off and I'm going to show them that it's not going to work. And lo and behold, it becomes a success. Hate that. Oh, I hate being proven wrong. But that would be the second course of action, is that you dive into it in with your skill set, your background, your fresh take on it. You may be able to turn what currently is in place into a success. So that's your second course of action. The third course of action, and these get kind of riskier and riskier, I want to say, as I go through. But the third and last course of action, Cindy, is to have the hard discussion. And that is, you are the CEO of this company. I am an expert in interior design and interior design divisions. Who is better at running an interior design division? Put them on point and call it out. You brought me in to grow this division because I am better than you at running this division. Let me run the division. Measure me on my results, not on how I get there. And that can be the, for lack of a better term, come to Jesus discussion you have with the CEO. I know that in this case you've had a couple of run-ins as far as management is concerned and kind of a little bit of micromanagement is concerned. And it may be that when you get to that frustrated point, you put them on point. And when they say, oh no, I am better than you at running an interior design division. And what are your results? These are my results. You've seen mine. What are your results? And get firm with it. Again, it's a risky track to go down with that. So present the numbers, play it out if you want to do it that way, or the third area is actually confronting them in this manner. Gerardo had one that I didn't get a chance to get to, and as we've queued up some more people here, if you have any questions, drop them down into the comment section. I'll be happy to tackle them in real time. I just have a few I needed to clean up from yesterday's session. And Gerardo's question was, how do you deal with favoritism in the workplace when your boss is playing favorites? The first thing that I recommend is actually taking a step back, Gerardo. Take a step back and ask why they are playing favorites. Look for a logical reason why they are playing favorites. Don't get me wrong. Most of the time they are playing favorites because there is some, they get along personally with that particular individual. But a lot of times there is some background or there is some value that causes a little bit of that favoritism. What you're looking for is not an excuse for it, and I'm not going to excuse favoritism at all on this. I want you to look for clues as to what you need to do to become a favorite, quite frankly. What is it? What clues is your boss giving by playing favorites? And I'm not talking about kissing butt, all right? Hey, you want to support your boss. That doesn't mean that you are a yes man in regards to supporting your boss. It means that you are helping them where you can. You are offering your services. You are trying to cover for their weaknesses. You're trying to magnify their strengths. That's being a good employee. Look for those opportunities to find out how it is that that person is a favorite. The other thing to do is simply engage with your boss more. The better you understand people and the better you know people, the easier it is to get along with them. So going along with supporting your manager is going out there and saying, hey, is there anything I can help with? Anything at all? And that can be something that kind of ignites a little bit of the discussion there. And that, that starts it open. Then you start trying to create a dialogue. Well, what are you looking to accomplish with this? And you look for this. People love talking about their successes. So ask them about, hey, we accomplished great numbers. What do you think was the cause of that last month? So you start opening up a dialogue a little bit more with your boss. When they understand you better, it's going to be easier for them to include you in other things that are going on. But look for those clues, be supportive, and open a dialogue. And that's one great way of overcoming favoritism. Hey, it's not good. Don't get me wrong. It's not good to play favorites, and there's all kinds of toxic things that come out of playing favorites. But it can also be something that you can tackle kind of logically and get through it. Sandra, so good to see you here. And Jermaine, I'll get to your question here in just one second. I had a follow-up. Yesterday's opening question was a difficult situation where an individual had moved their family, joined a company, and it just turned toxic and bad, top to bottom, from corporate to the boss to peers to employees. And lots of issues that were surrounding that. And I got to follow up a similar situation that is a little bit more, just a difficult environment where there's more political activity and the boss is kind of throwing people under the bus, that sort of thing. I come back to those two things. If you're not learning anything in the job and you don't have the ability to move up in the organization, then you owe it to yourself to look elsewhere. Now, in this case, and this applies to a bunch of you out there, this person went and looked for another job. And they were, not applying for jobs because they didn't finish off their schooling, finished a year short. And they were also told one time that the person was concerned that they would get bored at the particular job. So I've got two particular pieces of advice. Job descriptions and the requirements for jobs that you see out there are often, not always, but often a wish list. I wish that somebody had 10 years of experience in this and they had a degree, an advanced degree, and this and this. It becomes a wish list. But if you have a background, especially if you have a background in that area, that washes away so much. Most people in leadership roles, if they've been there for a while, realize that the schooling that they received doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter whether you have a business degree, a philosophy degree, an English degree. You check that box off, and 10 years down the road, nobody cares. All right? So don't let those things like I need a bachelor's degree is a requirement. No, apply anyways. They may say no, don't get me wrong. But if you've got significant experience in an area, don't let that stop you, because any organization that you want to be a part of should be looking at that experience far more than whether you have a degree in underwater basket weaving or something like that. So don't let that stop you. Now, that being said, when you are going, especially for people who are looking to take a step back, there's lots of reasons from the life side of things where you need to take a step back and not work so hard, not have as much responsibility, whatever else. Address that head on. John Michaels, good to see you here. Address that situation head on. When there is a main concern, you want to address it in the interview. So if you are taking a step back, why are you interested in that job? Why are you passionate about that job? Why is that an opportunity you're looking for? Why does that make sense in your life? When I was hiring people, I had no problem hiring people that had crazy experience. They had more experience than I had. They could take over my role, and they wanted to go to a line level job. It depends on the reason why. Are they desperate to have any job right now because they're out of work? Well, that's not somebody that I want. But are they somebody who's interested in taking a step back in their career? Are they interested in getting their foot in the door in a new industry? There's all kinds of reasons why that is. Address those concerns up front. When there is an obvious concern, what you are most afraid to be asked, volunteer the answer for it and make sure that you address it in your interview and you can help that situation out. So again, tough situation as far as the environment that you find yourself in, a small company in particular. They are ripe for those because there's fewer personalities and they have more impact. You can look elsewhere. Make sure you cast a wide net, and if you've got the experience, be confident in yourself, and you can see it through. So I'm going to start tackling some of these questions. So everybody out there, if you've got some questions, drop them down in the comment section, and I will go ahead and just start tackling them. Jermaine's got our first one, and it's how do you handle subordinates who are smarter or knows the process more than you do? Jermaine, you flip your script on this one just a little bit. You appreciate and love the fact that they know the process better and that they are smarter than you. That is an almost ideal situation because as a leader, your performance relies entirely on how everybody else on your team is doing. That's your role. You aren't there to create widgets. You're not there to process invoices. You're not there to ship orders. You're there to make sure everybody else does their job to the best of their abilities. And if they have more intrinsic knowledge because they're smarter, if they have more experience, then that is knowledge that you can gain to do your job better. So I lean on those people. When you know, and this happens for lots of, over the course of your career, it doesn't even matter almost how old you are, you're going to have people that have been in that job for 10 years. Rely on them. Ask them what has worked in the past. Ask them what they think should be done. When you roll out a new process, ask them, what do you think? And if they say it's never going to work because we've done it before, well, what would make it work? Lean on that experience as much as possible. Now, the concern that comes up is then you're ceding your authority. Okay? That's not the case. You are showing respect and you are gathering information. The ultimate decision is made at your level, but what you're doing is you're opening up a dialogue. And what happens with that dialogue is they see that you bring other things to the discussion. So you're not ceding your authority, you're gathering information, you're showing respect, and all of those things help you make better decisions. And in the long run, that's what gets better and better and better results. And they may not see it. What happens a lot of times is people are looking for that instant gratification on this. Oh no, it looks like I've ceded my authority. My people don't think that I know a darn thing. They'll come around. If you do this right, if you're explaining yourself and your decisions and why you're asking them and what goes into the priorities and the decisions that are being made, if you're having that dialogue, they're going to see it. Maybe not in the instant case, but certainly over the long term, they are going to see that. All right, great question, Jermaine. Love it. All right, Kim has our next one, and I am almost caught up on questions. So if you have any, drop them down. I see John Michael just dropped one in here. How do you include an employee who chooses not to engage with other staff or me, but then feels they are never included and is becoming unhappy? When asked, gets emotional and withdraws even more. So Kim, great question. And with a lot of these questions, what I do is I try to broaden the context of it just a little bit so that everybody understands or gets a little bit of value out of it. One of the most untapped resources in any organization is the super quiet and shy individuals. Good to see you here, Crystal. I answered yesterday's questions for you right at the top of this thing, FYI, so you can go back and catch it. But one of the most untapped resources in any organization is those quiet and shy individuals because they have a ton of knowledge. Because they're not talking so much, they're listening more. So they often have one of the best perspectives of anybody out there. I can't remember, I think it was Lyndon Johnson who said it's really hard to listen when you're talking. Something along those lines. So they see a lot more. What you want to do, Kim, is to engage them. And there's a few things, but it sounds like your individuals are particularly shy. Bring them into a comfortable environment. So it may be one-on-one with you in the office. Maybe they don't like the office and you go meet them in the conference room. Maybe they don't like that and the two of you go and get coffee. Maybe you walk around the building and do a walk and talk. But one of those ways where they feel comfortable, it's less threatening because it's you versus them, and really maybe also throw out the questions ahead of time so they have time to prepare for it, so they're not being caught off guard with it. So whatever those questions are, and I'll throw the 5 questions out that I do that are almost the only questions any leader needs to ask. And that is, what do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities we can take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do a better job? Ask them those 5 questions. Send it to them in email so they know about it ahead of time. But do it on a one-on-one basis. That's a safe environment for them to engage in, okay? Now, if they get emotional and start withdrawing, what I want to, even in a hyper-safe environment like that, what I want you to do is I don't want you to let them off the hook, okay? Especially when people get emotional and I want to say kind of unreasonable situations, you owe it to them to try to get past that discomfort. That discomfort and that emotionality is oftentimes a defense mechanism, and it's worked for them for years, where if they're in a situation that they don't like, they can get emotional and the person will, okay, it's okay, and let them go. And so then they remove themselves from that situation. So don't do that. But you can anticipate some of these things as well. So anticipate sensitive issues. If you want to seed the questions with certain things. Well, I noticed that you did really well on this. Why did you do well on this? So you can kind of anticipate and draw them in. It's difficult, but over time you can get persistent with this. It may be that the first time you try this, Kim, it doesn't work at all. But you know what? 2 weeks later, you have the same meeting. And 3 weeks later, you have the same meeting. And when they realize it's not going to go away, that pain isn't going to go away, they're more likely to finally engage. Now, for so many, you don't have those hyper shy individuals. In a lot of cases, what you want to do, have the one-on-one conversation, but maybe engage them in a team setting about something they're really good at. Or something where you throw that little, soft pitch to them for them to hit out of the park, where you know they've got the answer for it. So you engage them specifically in regards to a team setting in an area where they're strong. And so you bring them into those discussions like that. Another great way to do that is to actually team them up with people. So one of the things that I don't see nearly enough of in operations is we tend to give tasks to individuals, which is fine, it's efficient in that respect, but if you want to start building some teamwork, give those tasks to 2 individuals and have them team up on it. Yes, they are going to split the task, go their separate ways, but there is some engagement when they bring everything back together, and it helps foster those relationships. That's another great way in a one-on-one setting with a shy individual. Give them somebody to train. If you have a new hire, those shyer individuals are the ones that are these subject matter experts. So they're in a position of comfortable authority with another individual who wants to hear from them. That's another opportunity to do that. So I went through a bunch of things there, Kim, and again, for everybody out there, your shy, your quiet employees are a huge untapped resource for you if you can engage with them the right way. Kim, if you have any follow-ups on that, please drop down into the comments and we'll go ahead and keep this discussion going on that because that's a very important topic. John Michael's got the next question for us, and it's how do you get recognized for efforts made by my team? Many times I feel that the head of my store doesn't recognize the huge execution we made, almost like he is never pleased. This is bringing down morale in my team. And hold on, I'm going to read the top of that again, for efforts made by my team. So, first of all, the recognition aspect that we see in most organizations, we're always worried about what other people think and what other people see, and we're worried about our boss grabbing credit for stuff. And what I will tell you is most of the time, everybody sees through that. And I just reflect back on you. When you look at neighboring departments, you know that particular boss is relying on other individuals. You see that. Likewise, I believe your district manager is probably, many times I feel the head of my store, sorry. The head of your store sees the execution, but is asking for more. They're in that mindset where they aren't going to be satisfied. And that's the way that they lead. That's a leadership type. And no, it's not something that I particularly recommend, but it's not the worst thing in the world. My big thing for you is get public with the successes of your team. So if you've got a staff room, put up an update on what the sales are for your team or whatever other metrics there are. Track it on a daily basis. Show a chart. Executives, store managers, they are suckers for charts. So chart important metrics for, I don't know what industry you're in, the housewares department. these are houseware department sales, and this is our goals, and this is our budget, and you have it down there, and everybody can see that. So what that does is that it's a recognition for your team of hard work. If they have a great day of sales, bam, it's up there on the board for everybody to see. But what I will also encourage you to, and your boss can see it as well, so it's referenced there. I also want you to be talking about the successes more. Create a dialogue of success within your organization, within your department. And it's an opportunity that's out there. We tend to look for problems. We're wired in our brains to look for problems, to look for threats. And what happens with that is we end up focusing on those things, and we don't focus on the 95+% of the time that everything's going really well and those successes. So I want you to call out individual achievement, and I want you to call it out in a team setting. So, hey, pull it out, pull the team together very briefly when nobody's in the store, either before store opening or during a dead time, and say, hey, I just wanted to give a shout out to John. John did fantastic yesterday in regards to upsells, and also a shout out to Cameron. He did really well as far as sales of memberships or whatever it happens to be. Be that change. Don't wait for your store manager. Don't wait for your boss to be recognizing your team. Recognize the team yourself, and you can change things. This goes for a peer role as well. If your boss, your line level, or your group of supervisors, and your boss never recognizes the positive things, that doesn't mean that you can't recognize them, that you can't give a shout out to one of your peers. Any of those things can be hugely helpful as far as turning around that morale. So again, with this question, John, I don't know if I tackled exactly what you're looking for. So follow up in the comments, and we'll keep the discussion going, because that's a regular one where your boss isn't recognizing the efforts that are being put forward. Your team gets kind of demoralized because they never get that sort of kick from a motivation standpoint, but you can be part of that change. But you can also publicize it a little bit more, which makes it more likely that people mention it. Sophia, Patty, Casmella, so good to see y'all here. Sweets, good to see you here. I haven't seen you in a while. Love that. Get public. Okay, so I am caught up on questions right now. If anybody has any questions, drop them down. I will tackle it in real time. I have one last one that I received offline that I will tackle now while we wait for the next question to come in. This one pops up. Is it possible to be creative while having a lot of work? So first, John, born and raised in Seattle originally, but I've been in Vegas here for, 19 years or something like that. Good morning, Sharon. Good to see you here as well. So can you be creative and can you have a ton of work? The answer is yes. Now, I'll throw a couple of caveats behind that. I am not what I would consider a creative person at all. However, having written a few books, I very much understand the writer's block sort of process. Oftentimes, a lot of work unlocks that creativity. You don't have any other options than to get through it, and all of a sudden you get that flow going. And so in a lot of cases, it's actually better to have too much work than not enough work, because it's easier to procrastinate, to get lost in your own head, lost in your own thoughts. One thing that I do have in regards to creativity that I'm a big fan of, and it works for some things and not for other things, is to work through drafts. So it may be that you'd really like to have the time to do a bunch of brainstorming. That's one way of going through the creative process. The other way of going through the process is to just get it out. So personally, for me, I would do the draft of my book or draft of a chapter, and I would just write anything that I could on there. And then I'd go back and I'd tweak it, and more thoughts would come to my mind. And so I'd adjust it there. Go back a third time, and all of a sudden I need to do a little research in regards to something that's going on there. So you can work through drafts, and that's a creative process in and of itself, all right? So that's a lot of it. But I don't think that having too much work is something that inhibits creativity. I think in a lot of cases, I could be wrong on this, but in a lot of cases it unlocks that creativity because you have to, and it gets you into that flow state and you can kind of roll through some things. Great question. So 10 more seconds for the next question to pop in. I'll be doing another one of these sessions tomorrow. Try to do them every single day. Appreciate all the questions because I learn a ton from you guys. And I hope you learned some things from me. But check this out on the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, it's a great way to just kind of keep that exercise going as far as your leadership mind and your leadership muscles are concerned. And if you have any questions, you can always email me, cm@CameronMorrissey.com. I keep it confidential when it comes through those channels. Direct message me, or again, in the comment section, drop them down and I'll get them on tomorrow's episode. Thanks so much, everybody. I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.